on.
You said we were ready.
Well, yeah, I said just 1 minute, let me get this going, and then I'm ready, just sorry. Okay, now it's connected.
Call the September 25th, 2024 Millwood City Planning Commission meeting to order. I'll take a roll call. Commissioner Rickard.
I am here.
Commissioner Beasy.
Here.
Commissioner Molitor.
Here.
Commissioner Wu.
Present.
Commissioner Ankney here. We do have a quorum. First order of business is approval of the meeting agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion to approve the agenda.
Good.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next order of business is approval of our meeting minutes from the August meeting. I looked them over. I did notice a typo under action items number 4 in regards to the Starbucks special sign.
Permit. I see that. Okay.
Other than that,
I found a typo under 4B. The commissioners, it says commissioner began their deliberations, it should be an S.
I saw that too.
okay. Okay.
And I also noticed on, is it page 3, it says moved by Mike Ankney, seconded by, so then I move to recommendation.
Oh, good catch.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
So that should be
Page
two
3, planning commission meetings, second paragraph, moved by Mike, seconded by Savannah, to recommendation, either to recommend or to make.
Yep. To recommend. Do you see that, Lisa?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Anything else? Okay, so I will entertain a motion to approve as amended.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Do you have a second?
I will second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, that brings us to action item number 4A, which is a public hearing on the zoning text amendment. And so just so we do it properly, first question I'm going to ask is anybody who wishes to provide testimony, please sign in. The next question is of asking all of the commissioners, does anybody have a conflict of interest?
No.
Seeing none. Is there anyone present who has any objection to any of the members of the Planning Commission? Seeing none. Okay, so that brings us to staff presentation.
Okay. Since this is a continued public hearing, I already presented the majority of the staff report last time. So I will just jump into the part that was missing, and that is the actual Spokane County standards. I went through to make it easier for review and highlighted within the standards the portions that I know the Millwood Municipal Code is missing that I would be utilizing. Parking requirements is not needed because we already have parking requirements. So we jump to page 802-5 of the standards, parking lot location and design.
What page is that, Amanda?
So of the packet, I'm not sure what packet page it is, but on the, it's about 5 pages in on the Spokane County standards portion.
Okay.
And it should have highlighted at the top of the page. So 14802.060 parking lot location and design. Were you able to find it, Commissioner Moulton?
So which
No.
chunk of it? There was the whole thing justifying it's okay to change, and then we had the,
So go down past all of the staff report, so past the draft recommendations, and below that is the Spokane County attachment.
Okay, well, is this past the
It
secret
looks-
review?
Yep, all
It
past
looks
that.
like this on the front, it's
Here,
got the blue.
Oh, okay, thank you for that, that's very helpful.
That's why I put it in blue, so I would be able to find it easier.
Found it.
I remember seeing that.
Now it's up on the screen too, so you can
Says
see it
page
up there.
802 on the bottom. Which page did you get?
802-5,
802-5.
right
Okay,
there, there
right
we
here,
go.
there it is. It's also on the screen, so you can see if
Yep.
that might help you find the one you're looking for.
There we go.
So this section essentially talks about bike racks that the Millwood Municipal Code doesn't have anything on. So like right now for the new Starbucks, I couldn't require a bike rack because there was nothing in the code about it. It also talks about not having vehicles where they encroach into stormwater and other grassy swales and all that. That's something that is a little bit lacking in the code. It talks about the need to have van pool, which is not a big deal, but it is in there, when you have more than 50 parking spots. Other than residential, it tells you not to back out onto right-of-way, which is great. It has, the most important is the parking stalls and aisles and parking dimensions. And so, when you go to the next page, it says right at the bottom, all parking stalls, 8.5 by 18. So right there, we've got our parking stall size. It also goes through and outlines different types of parking on the 2 pages to show you what the aisle widths would be. This is all mostly commercial or multifamily, but it goes through and does a good job. This is actually very similar. I don't think it's changed much over the years. This was what we used as an interim code in Liberty Lake as well, until we got our sections adopted. And then we actually utilized similar standards from there. So that takes care of the parking dimension and driveway dimension issues. Then the next section at the top of 802-8, parking lot surfacing and marking requirements. It talks about marking them out, having the pedestrian walkways, which we don't have a huge thing on, and then going more into pedestrian access.
Okay, hold on. Does anybody else only have the odd number pages?
Oh. I got 2 copies though.
Yeah, I have 2 copies.
Of the odd piece.
No, of everything.
Oh, good.
I don't have,
Because I only have the odd number pages.
Oh,
Well, let's see. I
809, there's 11.
I don't have that one with the blue at
okay,
the
let me
top.
start.
You don't have it at all? Well, I've got a
Now you're
spare.
Okay.
That was
would
the
you like to
problem.
pull it up on the screen for everybody?
That was the problem I ran into.
Okay,
I have-
perfect. I got it.
So you may have your
found it.
first.
It was correct.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
you may
into-
have the
deeper into
very
the packet.
first part is,
So I'm not that far now.
no, let's see.
Okay.
You got
Once
everything
everybody's
now?
there, all.
Cause I really got 2 full sets.
Well,
There it
okay,
is.
the first problem see, the first couple pages are just odd. It's not a full set, it's just the odds, and then it goes to a full set, and that's where my problem started. Here it goes. So we're gonna throw this away.
Okay.
Oh, but you put sticky notes on those,
Well,
sorry.
no, I
So
just-
then, the first part is
I
odd, then
don't
your
like
second
that.
one is full, and I'm,
Okay.
that's where I have my
Being a
problem.
professional copy
So this
machine
has
operator.
got both sides of the page. and
That's
that's
what happened. Did we get
Right,
yours?
I
She didn't
Say
push
they
the
send
button
them
too
electronically,
sides.
yeah.
She didn't push
Oh,
that
good,
button.
okay, so you're good, okay, good.
You guys
Okay.
are funny.
All right.
So,
Thank you,
yes,
Lisa.
I'm so
Too
sorry.
much about copy machine.
That was the problem I ran into with Michaela. She's like, but it's 141 pages, or 135, and I was like, no, there's 141. Well, no, but there shouldn't be, and so we were like. And I fixed it
Okay,
for the
cool.
packets I emailed you, but apparently not there. So, there you
So
go.
everybody's okay?
Okay, so now, do we want me to backtrack a little bit?
Yeah, so where would you like me to go back to? The odd pages?
No,
Back to
I'm good at.
Oh, you're all good?
802,
Okay.
8.
So covering over, we're done with the parking stall and everything.
Yep.
And
Can I
then
make a comment, Amanda?
Sure.
Tennis and similar courts, 1.5 spaces per court for parking. I mean, everything else is 1 or 2. This is just a comment. It just seems like tennis and similar courts, 1.5 spaces per court.
Or is
And
that
what is that
See
on?
where you're talking
Well, it
about?
doesn't apply to us
Right
anyway.
down at the bottom.
802 802-1
Yeah,
on the bottom.
802.
Oh, it doesn't apply, because we already have, Millwood has parking standards for.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I just thought, put a smile on my face myself.
And there's some that are like 3/4 and stuff.
Okay, sorry.
Well, and my little, hair place next to me would require 10
Yeah,
parking places. There's no way there's 10 people in there.
yeah.
You know, it's, I
So
like
no,
ours.
no,
Ours are
it's all
better.
good. You have your own,
Ours are better.
yeah, you have your ratio standards.
Okay.
And so page 802-8 just supplements the pedestrian access, and supplements the walkway striping, those kinds of things that we don't have a lot of in the Millwood Municipal Code. And then finally, I skipped over joint use. We can use it as needed, but it isn't a big thing. The Millwood Municipal Code that I saw didn't have any off-street loading, so we can use that section when needed. And that's it. So obviously the biggest thing on here is the parking driveways, the parking stalls, all that. But it just gives us an overall temporary Band-Aid to get us through for a couple years until we adopt the standards in 2026 and can address all this in the code for Millwood.
How much are we impacted by the county code on all of these things, Amanda? That, I mean, there's a lot in here that I see that, you know, we're gonna end up following the county code or the Washington State code at some point. So how does that affect?
Oh, you mean the new legislative changes?
Yes.
Oh, those will be taken care of with the update. So, for example, the new legislative changes, and I hope I'm quoting this right, I believe for residential, especially affordable housing and middle housing, I believe, you cannot require parking stalls larger than 8 by 20, I think is what it is.
It was smaller than 8 by 20.
Yeah, I remember 8 by 20 for some reason, but anyway,
It was
the-
8 by 20.
yeah, the new standards address
Smaller.
that, so obviously that's something we'd have to address. And so, that part would be pulled out, you know, when we do this, most of this would be pulled out, I think all, if not all of it, when we do the update, and we'd replace those with all the current legislative standards and what Millwood wants to see for like loading zones and stuff.
Thank you.
So that's one of my questions. How hard is it to just pull this out in a
Super
year?
easy. If you look at what I did to add it, literally
I saw
can
that.
just strike it right out.
Yes, but look at all the paperwork you had to do to put it in.
I know,
Do we have
it's
to
a
do
lot
that
harder
if-
to add than it is to remove.
Then because this was not purposely made for us, we have some inconsistencies.
Millwood code takes precedence if there's an inconsistency.
So it looks to me like the only time this can apply is for new construction. Because when we
yeah.
look at submission of a parking plan under applicability of standards, it says a change to such an extent that a county developmental permit or certificate of occupancy is necessary. Well, that'll never be necessary.
Starbucks,
Needed a county one?
it would be ours, so it'd be,
Yeah, but it doesn't say ours, it says county.
well, it would be interpreted to be ours, because we're adopting this by reference for use as ours. So if a CO or a development permit is needed, it would refer to Millwood. And so, just like in the other part of the section, where we reference the Spokane County stormwater standards and landscaping standards, it would be as needed and interpreted through Millwood. This would be the same way.
Okay, that's not too good.
It's a you gotta remember, it's just a temporary fix for the next 2 years.
So then the other thing is 802-5,
Okay,
parking lot location and design. Who's gonna know what zones LDR, LDR-P, MDR, or HDR are?
Yeah.
So,
they're all residential.
well, they are.
Yeah.
But,
It would, that section right there, I would not be using for the most part. I just highlighted the top because it made more sense than picking and choosing 80% of it. So, like I said, I would only use what is needed in order to fill a gap in the Millwood code.
well, that's you,
Yeah.
if it's still here when we have somebody else.
It's up to the planning director, whoever that is, to interpret the
So,
codes.
I mean, I would think if those zones don't exist, we can't, we can't apply it because they don't exist. Doesn't say all residential zones, it picks out specific residential zones.
Outdoor parking areas for single-family and two-family dwellings which are located between the existing roadway and the dwellings shall be consistent with the following standards. We can, I just won't utilize that section if you don't want me to. Literally, it's only to fill gaps. So if we have a brand-new house that goes in and Millwood doesn't have the requirement to have the 50% or whatever, I can use it, or we don't need to. The biggest thing about this was making sure we had the driveways and stuff. The dwelling shall be consistent with the following standards. We can.
So that gives you the discretion to apply it or not apply it?
If I apply it, it would be applied consistently. If the planning commission directs me that you don't want me to apply it, I won't apply it. And it'll be in the record.
Planning commission make that decision or the city council?
Sorry,
We make the decision to recommend.
to recommend,
Okay,
yeah.
got it,
Yeah.
okay.
So if you want to include in your recommendation, basically go with recommendation of approval and don't include 14.802.060.9, that's fine.
Well, the tricky part is you may, at least just as an example, section 9, you may want parts of that, you may not want parts of that.
We gotta be consistent. And we haven't had them for almost 100
Yeah.
years. So
Good point, though.
I think we'd be okay without them, because like you say, parts we may want. And a lot of this, I think, is unnecessary. A lot of it is stuff we should read and think about when we get to doing ours. It's good stuff. I'm just not, feel kind of like we're cramming square peg into a round hole or something, where it just doesn't quite.
Oh, those are good points.
Then, yeah. Well, luckily, we have standards, ratios for how many parking places we need in different circumstances. C1 and C2 in all residential areas. I didn't have time to look at industrial zones or the public
You have
zones.
standards for all the zones.
So that stuff just doesn't apply, which is good. And then the parking design incentives. I'm not sure we want to do that either.
Right, yeah.
102-10. Like if you have underground parking or multi-level parking or bus shelters. Then
Well, what does it hurt to have it in there just to fall back on if we do need to pull something from it? I think that's Amanda's point.
yeah, no, I understand. It's just there is so much here. I tend to be very wary of unintended consequences. So little thing that's pulled out that so this is going to apply any new construction and any time someone has like a change of use. But the ratio things will not apply.
Correct. parking ratio.
Right.
Bike rack or loading zone would
Yeah.
for commercial.
My concern, and we may be okay, my concern is the C2 zone. We went through before and we came up with our parking ratios and stuff pretty clearly for C1, but C2 is more complicated. C2 is almost like the city of Spokane regulations apply more to it than the county does.
So for the C2 zone, I just ran through, looking at that. The bike racks, the not backing onto the right of way, the parking stall dimension or parking lot dimension portion is minimal as it is for C2. Those are the predominants that would apply to C2. Everything else in there, loading, they're too small for it, so it wouldn't apply.
Now, the not backing onto public right-of-way, there are places there where you might need to. And if you're not fronting on Argonne, if you're fronting on the alley, for instance, what's wrong with backing onto it? In fact, all of the parking that the city just put in to C2 requires backing onto the alley.
Is the alley the right of way?
Sure, it's a right-of-way, it's a city right-of-way. Belongs to the city.
Are you talking about behind like bottles?
Yeah, all of those have to back into the alley. I mean, C2 is just so specific, we need to,
Those would all be grandfathered in.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
until somebody does a change of use for something. I'm a little concerned, but they'd be in trouble with even ours, but there's a building that, the old post office building has been sold. And there were some rumors that somebody might want to make it a restaurant. Well, there's no parking.
What building is that?
On Euclid, just this side of the church parking lot, church
Oh, okay.
used to have it as.
Oh, right where Fitness Fanatics went out?
Yes, they apparently
They
sold.
sold it? Good.
So the part along Euclid, that's basically on-street parking, even though it's on BNSF land, so that wouldn't be included in this.
Right, and it's parallel parking, so
Yeah.
there's no.
So, what this would affect is if somebody is backing, I believe the old post office, that's the one next to the community church parking lot, is that correct?
Yeah.
8919?
Yeah, there's
Okay.
a building between them and there's a building in an alley and then the church parking lot.
Okay, so, for example, if that end building, wanted to back onto Euclid, for example, that we could let them do. If they wanted to back onto an alley, I don't think it's gonna be a big deal, but I wouldn't let them back onto an arterial or collector.
Well, Euclid is, I guess, a collector, but
It's an arterial,
Euclid is an arterial?
Yeah.
When did that happen?
so it's a principal arterial. So, and that's just bad planning if you let them back onto a collector or arterial like that. And so an alleyway, I wouldn't see a big issue on it, but a collector or arterial it would be.
Right, but it does say in here, so again, we're selecting.
So there has to be some discretion on it in there. Obviously, like I said, it's a Band-Aid fix. And if something is definitely missing from the Millwood Code, I'm gonna refer to this.
Any other questions for Amanda? Okay. Is there a presentation from the applicant? I'm just going down
I guess
my
that'd be
list.
me. You got it.
I'm just going down the list.
So the next thing would be, I can go over the draft recommendations when you're ready.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so on page 7 of the staff report, so this would be in front of all that SEPA and stuff. Let's see. I'll I'll wait till everybody gives a nod, because I know the pages were a little out of order. So at the top it says draft recommendations. Do you want to pull that up?
Right to it.
Yeah. And very bottom there, draft recommendations. Right there, there we go. Is everybody on that page?
Not sure which page you're.
Okay, did you want it up on the screen?
Page 4,
sorry.
here we go.
I thought I had,
I'm not-
I have it on my screen, I don't know why you guys can't see.
There we go.
Should look like this.
There you go, okay.
So draft recommendations for the planning commission. Option 1 would be recommendation of approval, that, ZTA 2024-02 is found that the criteria in the MMC have been met. The suggested amendment is consistent with the purpose and intent of the comp plan for the physical development of the district or city as applicable, will not adversely affect the health and safety and welfare of the public, and is not in violation of any state or federal law, caveating that we know that the parking stalls will have to be updated, we know that. Option 2 is recommendation of denial, or the hybrid, if you want to strike out a specific section, it would be option 1, removal of a specific section.
Is there any questions on the, for Amanda on that presentation?
I remember reading that. So, thanks.
So moving forward, like I said, we're just doing the formality. Is there any public testimony? And I don't see any rebuttal. Any final questions? And I'm going to close the public hearing on this matter. And now, as the commission, we can deliberate. I'm in favor of approval on this. I think it meets the criteria for everything for approval. But I will listen to anybody else's concerns.
I think it does too.
It worked well. Amanda at Liberty Lake, it sounds like it could be a good fix for us for 2 years.
Right. I would agree with that. I mean, if we find, if something comes up in the next 2 years where, hold it, it's not working, we can address it at that time. Bobby, I know you have your concerns, but
I have reservations and.
like everybody's gonna be grandfathered in, so this is for new use or change of use only, so.
That makes it palatable. I think it's really important that we have plans to pull it out as soon as we can and put our own in. I think we need, one of the things that we could have been doing the last 9 months when we weren't meeting was working on the C2. It's one of the unfinished business that we had planned to work on. But we need something very creative and I don't watch it too much British TV, bespoke or specifically made for.
Something created specifically for the city of.
Yes, yeah, exactly, for C2. And I think we should take a look at like City of Spokane and other urban areas to get some ideas for, because that's kind of what we are with on-street parking and some business structures there with zero parking, except on-street parking. So we need to not just write them off, but allow them to have businesses there.
Okay. Anybody else? So with that in mind, I would recommend a motion to approve. If I can get somebody to make that motion.
I will make that motion
Okay.
to
Do we have a
approve.
second?
I would like to pull out that number 9 on the residential that doesn't really match up with our residential and doesn't really add anything that we probably need. I think our design standards pretty well handle what they're trying to do. see, page 802-5,
Item number 9,
yeah.
and your issue with that is how it's listed, LDR, LDRP. You would like to see that to be C1, C2, R1, R2.
Well, they're all residential. I'm not sure it's necessary to have it in there, and those codes don't match up with ours. So,
But if we're just pulling this as a whole, we're not gonna go in there and change the language in just one.
well, we can't change the language.
Yeah.
We can instruct Amanda, don't use this against anybody is pretty much what we'd be doing.
Just so,
Get rid of A, B, C, and D also.
I just wanna
Yeah, 9.
be devil's advocate here for a second. So Amanda, if we remove item number 9 in the parking lot, which is the residential parking that Bobby's talking about. Okay, I like some of the language in this, I'll be honest with you, just for the fact that it pretty much defines where residential cars can park. Okay? If we remove this, is that opening it up to free will?
It's what we have now.
Right.
So
like
essentially,
parking in
this
front
is,
yards, parking
Yeah.
wherever.
we already have that.
So if you have a 50-foot wide lot, which I think we allow you to build on, that means you get 25 feet maximum parking width, driveway width under this.
And there is item D, I'll point out 9D, that allows me discretion in it.
There's a lot of meat in that number 9.
I'm kind of confused. Is your only concern about these zoning definitions?
Well, my concern is is we haven't really thought it through. We're just jumping in there because the county did it. And then we have this issue where, how do those match up? What are those different zones in the county? We can't change to match ours. So, you know, we're totally at Amanda's discretion as to when she would use this and when she wouldn't. You know, would it be just any residential or?
Well, what if we just insert the caveat that in this particular section, all those zoning designations would be interpreted as any residential use? Is it
Right.
residential use that you don't want to have any of this happening?
I don't think Bobby necessarily agrees with the language, it's just that the zones don't match.
Just the zones.
And then that could lead to misinterpretations.
So
Well,
we- so
what
we-
you're saying cleans it up a lot.
We approve it with the
Because it's
caveat
clear.
that those zones are
Thank you.
simply apply to any residential.
So if that was put in that original language that we bring it in with, the one where it says when, you know, if we don't have something that applies to it, then this takes over, then you would, in that language. put
I can
in-
add it to there, or we can just make it part of the record, either one. That,
I'd like to
9,
see it added,
that 9 is interpreted as, Millwood residential zones.
all
Records
all
get
Millwood
lost.
residential. I mean, that at least cleans it up. I'm still not necessarily in favor of it, but at least it's clean and clear.
That's easy enough to do, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah, do you want it in the record, or you actually want that language added?
Add the language.
I'd like it added,
So if I'm understanding you right, Bobby, number 9 would read, just for the first sentence, within any Millwood
No.
residential.
It'll read exactly what it reads.
Yeah. It'd be-
But that she has a paragraph where she brings this in by reference. And in that, we'd say something about, and
Okay.
Right there,
these are equivalent to.
yeah.
Oh,
So I
okay,
would,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
So right here.
So, along with Spokane County Chapter 14802, off-street parking and loading standards are herein adopted by reference, and then references to Spokane County
Yeah.
residential zones shall be Millwood residential zones.
Shall apply to all Millwood residential zones.
And I can do the same thing for commercial if you want, or if you only want me to.
No,
Yeah, you can't,
no, because it doesn't call out commercial
Okay.
by zone number. So, but while you're at it, maybe you should also put in there county building permits would apply to Millwood building permits. So that
Okay,
clean that up too and it's straight.
and references,
sorry, say that again?
Oh, there's at the beginning of this, it says it only applies if you need a county development permit or certificate of occupancy. Well, we want it to apply if you need a Millwood
Yeah.
building permit. or
so I would
certificate of-
suggest, saying references to Spokane County residential zones shall apply to all Millwood residential zones, sorry, left that off. And references to Spokane County shall be Millwood, or something, you know what I
Shall
mean.
be interpreted
Yeah,
as Millwood,
yeah.
whatever, yeah,
Shall be interpreted as Millwood.
just to have it be clear, anybody that picks it up and reads it knows.
Yeah.
I have it.
Okay. Any other discussion or thoughts? So I know in the past that we've had an issue with approving something before we actually see the language we just asked you to put in. But I am asking for the motion to be, so we can move on and try to stay on task on
Yeah.
the schedule. This is the second
And I will
meeting.
definitely add it to what goes to the planning,
So-
or to the council.
If we can approve, I would like to amend the motion to say, approve the plan has with the amended language.
Added language.
Okay, does that cover?
I would, yes, make that motion
Okay,
amended.
okay, do I have a second? I gotta hear it. You can't shake your head, thank you. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the matter? Okay, all in order, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. Okay, so brings us to agenda item number 4B, which is a periodic update / public workshop. And a public workshop is different than a public hearing, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Amanda.
All right, so, a lot of order here, but let me just get that moved over. Okay, there we go. So, unfortunately, we don't have anybody in the audience tonight, but the way this was going to be was an informal workshop with planning commission and the public. That'll now just be the planning commission portion. So up on the screen is where we start. And we're referring back to the visioning from 1993 that's included in the comprehensive plan. And essentially what we're gonna be looking at is on the, on the 9 items, do we include each of those goals? Do we include them but with modifications? Or do we remove them? Do we not include them in the comp plan update? So, the one that I have highlighted there for you, number 4, is the only one that will not comply with the state legislative updates that we have to do. And the reason it won't comply is because you're pulling out and trying to designate specific areas that includes low-income housing. You can't do that anymore. It has to be distributed throughout. So, 4 definitely needs modification. Anything else can stay as is if that is how you so choose. And I'll make one announcement. If there is anybody watching online tonight that would like to make suggestions to what we're going through, please feel free to email it to me at planner@millwoodwa.us, and I will incorporate it just like I will the Planning Commission and the City Council's discussions.
So is that true if somebody watches it tomorrow night?
Yeah, I'll collect them all. Because essentially, this is part of like, we're going through the survey right now. This is the visioning portion, so I'm collecting everything.
Great.
Okay.
And once we get through the 9 goals, then we'll move on to the district's portion.
So then what would be your suggestion for number 4?
I would probably just strike it, honestly.
I was thinking.
So, the problem with it is the low-income housing, correct?
Well, the problem is potentially multifamily dwellings,
That was my
mobile
question.
homes, and low-income housing, depending on how you interpret the goal.
Well, I think mobile homes are defined differently than manufactured homes.
They're treated the same in the code.
Are they? Because we went to a lot of trouble defining them separately.
No, they're, mobile home, as far as an actual unit, is pre-1976, June of 1976. But as far as how it's used, there's actually a reference in the code that it's used the same. So, that's the concern. Because right now, nobody could bring in a mobile home that's essentially defined as a pre-1976 HUD. You can't locate it because it doesn't meet the standards for a Millwood manufactured home. So the word isn't even needed, really. And manufactured homes have to be treated the same as single-family
Right.
homes.
And we have
So,
stuff in the code that indicates that. Yeah, I think originally this was for mobile homes.
yeah, and remember,
That
we're
would
going
be in
back
a
to
park.
1993, so a
And
lot has changed.
yes, in the adult bookstores, we were informed, it was one of the things the state was informing us, that we had to have a place that we could allow it. Or
And
we
you
had
do.
to allow them somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's how that strangely made it
They're
into
on
the.
Trent.
Yeah, well, if we draw all of our circles around schools and daycares and stuff, there's this little corner on Trent.
And you don't even have designated areas for large animals.
We don't anymore?
Not that I could see.
What about on Empire?
Yeah,
That just happens to be UR1 zone, but it doesn't say large animal keeping is a use.
it may not have it as a use, but I believe it defines livestock units and how many livestock units you can have for how much land.
I was just looking at the uses on the zoning.
Okay, no, it's
So,
in there. If you
yeah.
read farther in, it is in there. Or it was last I knew.
But I was figuring if that's the only part that would keep it, it would almost be worth striking for, but.
I think that certainly was very important for some people. I don't know now, that part of town, how important it is. That's something I would really like to hear from the public on. And multifamily dwellings is anything
You
more
guys
than
don't
one?
have them defined, that's something else I have to add. But typically, multifamily dwellings are 5 units and or above. The
Okay.
way it's utilized in your code would be 3 or above.
And we do have specific designated areas. We have designated areas.
You do, but you also allow them as a conditional use permit in the UR1.
Right, that was one of the areas I was thinking of.
Yeah. So, but that all has to change with the new legislative updates.
I would like to hear from the public on that one just before.
Because with the new thing, we're supposed to have a certain percentage, right? Of the
Low income.
low income.
We have to do it by income bracket. And so this is what we're currently working on right now. So if you have 38 units or 36 units or whatever, and then you have to have this many units in permanent supportive housing, you have to have this many units in 50 to 80, this many in 80 to 100, and this many greater than 120 or whatever. And you have to allow for it in those zones. So that's why it makes it really hard, because ADUs, if we allowed those everywhere, fantastic. That takes care of the maybe 50 to 80, more likely 80 to 100, depending on how they're rented or owned, their cost. Lower than that, you're definitely looking at least at multifamily. Or what the code doesn't currently call for is maybe a triplex or fourplex units. And so it's in the lowest income brackets that makes it the little bit tougher, that I gotta look at a little closer.
So how wrap my head around we can't make it happen. That
Correct.
somebody privately has to come in
Yeah.
and put in the money and build.
We
the
just have to
units.
give the allowance for it.
So which it's kind of allowed now, but
Somewhat, yes. So when you're looking at the density, if all we were looking at was density and with allowing the duplexes in most of the zones, if not all of them, I'd have to go back and look, and allowing ADUs as they need to be modified, we could meet it that way, but you're not gonna meet the income part. That's the second part. And that's where I have to look at and see how the code has to be written in order to allow for that. So maybe a suggestion that number 4 could be replaced something like meet the or provide for adequate middle housing, in accordance with state updates or something like that. So that would replace the housing portion of it.
Yeah, that's gonna be addressed later on anyway, isn't it, as we get
As far
into-
as the specific language, yes,
Specific
this is
language,
just
yeah.
step 1.
so
Okay.
do we get credit for the really low income housing we already have?
It has already been counted in.
Right.
Yeah.
But we do,
Yeah, so what I'm referring to would be new units that have to be added. So from my land capacity analysis forward, so even the manufactured home park is not included. So if that actually goes in, that helps.
the old.
The old
okay,
one is
The
included.
old one is, and I would think that that's pretty low.
I'm not sure where it falls on the chart, but because they don't name, but I'm assuming it's in the lower.
And I know the apartments behind me are as low as they get. So we have some.
We have some, we just need
Make
to
sure and count
accommodate.
all the ones we
Yeah.
got.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know, other than saying you can have multifamily dwellings, what else?
that's why I was thinking the best thing to do is just strike number 4, really. But it's totally up to you guys and,
Well, I'm not sure that's the
Yeah.
same question.
Yeah.
These, as I understand it, in the current code, are summaries of when the town, we had lots of meetings with lots of people, I mean.
30 years ago.
Yeah, but we had lots of meetings, this room, we had more room for people then because we just had a table up front. And it was packed a number of times. And we went through all of this process and these were the summary of the input. So I'm a little confused
We're
about
starting a
us.
new visioning process.
Right, but do we start with us deciding whether the old summaries still apply? Is that what we're trying to do? Or do we get the input from people and see if they still apply? I mean,
Well, this was the public workshop chance. There's gonna be more discussions on this throughout. This is just step 1, to workshop it, discuss it. I take it to council, they workshop, discuss it. And then starting at the October meeting it is, I believe, we start proposing modifications. And that runs off and on all the way through till April or May, when we have public hearings. So this is just step 1.
I think all the other ones besides 4 look great still.
I agree.
Yeah, me too.
Whoever did that 30 years ago did a great job.
well,
Good job,
it's-
Bobby.
It wasn't, I was not here then. I was one of the public that came to the meetings.
Okay.
But
I just think this one doesn't really apply to what we have going on now. Maybe it applied then, but it's gonna need to change, so.
right, clearly needs to change
If we
how.
strike this now, we can always add something in the
Well,
future.
How is this going, I mean, first, it strikes me how similar Millwood's sense of itself still is. Like you say, how long ago that was, in most, with that one possible exception, these haven't changed.
Right.
And most people you talk to on the street will tell you the same thing. I mean, I'm pretty confident. But how do we, are we gonna dovetail these in with the new things we get from the surveys and from people that do come when they know that it's a real workshop asking them for information? Or are these going to be separate? How are we going to incorporate these?
So these are the 9 that you had from 1993. I will have a paragraph under this that says these 9 goals were reviewed as part of the community visioning process for the 2026 periodic update. Through that process, we made changes to, and for example, goal number 4 was removed, period. Goal number 4 was replaced with whatever, and then an additional goal 10 or 11 or 12 was added. So as we get public feedback in, so for example, you brought up the survey, Bobby. So say in the survey, it says Millwood needs a swimming pool. I'm just throwing that out there. Millwood absolutely needs a swimming pool. So I would probably suggest number 10 would be strive to construct a swimming pool for the city of Millwood. So anything that comes out that strong, then we can work through as we modify these sections, chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, and as we add in the Parks and Recreation element as well. That all comes back so that we have updated goals and then an actions framework for the plan.
I agree with Savannah. I think that these 9, I mean, I can see us going through the public comments and enhancing. We already have that word in a couple of them, but enhancing some of the things that we already have to complement what's here right now. So number 4, I think, a couple of things. Can we just strike out some of these things? Because we're going to address low-income housing in another portion, if they're multi-level. If we already have something for large animals, multifamily dwellings, mobile homes, we already have something for mobile homes.
And you already have something for adult bookstores.
Yeah, so can we just, low-income housing, scratch that from this portion and leave everything else, provide designated areas for large animals, multifamily dwellings, mobile homes, and adult bookstores?
I would caution on the multifamily and the mobile as well, because we're supposed to be looking at it as a residential, all the residential zones. Yeah,
I was just thinking we already have it, so.
but it's gonna have to change.
So the piece I think that we'll be missing, if we just wholesale strike this,
Right.
is the, it says designated areas for large animals. What I think it's trying to get at is the concept of, we want a little bit larger lots over there, it's a little bit more rural, it isn't as densely, and we don't have anything in here that gets at that. I suspect that the public is going to want some kind of statement that acknowledges that. This other stuff, if I remember right, they were just getting, our plannings were getting us used to the idea you need to have a place for all of these things. And so we said, okay, we'll have a place for all these things, and that's how it ended up. But I'm not seeing in here anything that acknowledges the different character of the UR1 zone. And I suspect some of the public that's not here might think that's important.
So it's just, if I'm getting this right, it's within the UR1 zone is where you're referring large animals. So you could even change it, provide designated areas for large animals, or provide designated areas for large animals and leave it blank, or provide designated areas for large animals within the UR1 zone, and you wouldn't even need the word designated then, but.
Well, isn't that what this public input's going to give us, is that input, so that we could leave this now and then add to it as we get the public's input.
Well, and it does, this is just step one, so this was
Right.
supposed to be a public
Right.
workshop to
Right.
work through some of this.
Right.
You're
Yeah.
making a suggestion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And clearly, we need to do something with this. I agree that most of this just should be stricken. But we should leave open the possibility of putting something about the other side of town, or the UR1 zone.
We have to do that right
Different
now, or will
character.
that come with the input from public input?
So basically I've circled it, we know it's a problem, we know it needs to be worked on. And if the rest are looking okay, that's where I'm running with. And as we get more comment in, it'll keep coming up and we can refine it. We can see what city council has to say. There's no decision that has to be made tonight. This was just a workshop.
Okay.
Yep.
I like refining, that word refining. Yeah, we'll refine
Okay.
this.
Exactly.
Refine.
Okay.
Okay,
All right, next part. So, furthermore, the community identified vision statements for the major districts within the town. What modifications, if any, should be made to the community vision statements? And again, I think everything is fine with the exception of public and open space is the biggest issue. And that is what we have. Let's see. Oh, you are right, Lisa. That's why you printed these off. It was referenced in here.
Yes.
Okay, so the handouts that Lisa put on your tables there, basically, there's a provision in here that says pedestrian access to the river could also be provided by using the right-of-way on the east side of the Argonne Road Bridge. And then it talks about, let's see, where was the other part? The very first sentence, the city shall try to purchase land on the northeast side of the city between Davis Road and Butler Road adjacent to the river along the shoreline of the Spokane River. Well, obviously, that didn't happen. The city purchased land on the west side. So that's kind of outdated there. And then the other thing that I wanted to point out in these is the area along the Argonne side of the bridge there, even though there may be an opening, it's not really acceptable access, I guess you could say, or they'd have to go potentially through IEP land to get there. So really, the only approved access point should be what the city already owns the land or designated, which there isn't any other designated that I'm aware of. All the right-of-way that runs into the river, one is for sewer treatment, so you can't consider that. That would be the end of Sargent. All three are? Okay, so all three of the right-of-ways that run into the river, from Riverway essentially, would not be accessible.
The Sargent Road one is fairly accessible because of its size, because, I mean,
It shouldn't be.
people launch all the
I tried
time.
it. I did.
It's not easy.
It was dangerous.
Yeah.
I fell.
It is dangerous, absolutely.
I don't think people should be
Yeah,
going down that.
Am I
They are.
correct in saying the
Saying
city
it shouldn't
should
be. It's
post all
dangerous.
locations?
is that on Sergeant
Definitely
Road?
been talked about.
Okay,
That's all there is. I understand it's a little less dangerous with the river
Okay.
now than it was.
Probably should have enter at your own
Yes.
risk.
yeah.
I thought there was a sign. We did have one.
So signage has been discussed. They're still discussing.
Signage is being
Updating that.
discussed,
Yeah.
it's not, no.
So all
There
three of
was a
those
sign,
are
but it's been
problematic.
heavily
But it should be a little bit stronger sign,
You would know.
Yeah, they pulled it right out of the ground.
a little bit
Oh,
stronger sign.
that's beyond vandalizing.
Yeah. So that's why I highlighted the public and open space, because it's either outdated or just, we shouldn't be advertising it.
Yeah. I could see some kids go down there when they find out about it. Probably they could get hurt. So
If you're talking the Sargent Road one, they know.
my kids don't know about it.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess because you're a little farther away, but I used to live,
I think most
Adjoining
kids
it,
now are on their
and
cell phones.
Close.
there were
They
a
find out
lot.
about that. It's gonna be a problem. Yeah.
In a
Yeah.
normal summer, that's used.
Yeah, it's used because it's all we have. If we were to take the land that we purchased and properly develop it, control it, then
Safer.
Yeah, that'll be a battle.
So question is, Bobby, you and I, because we've been on the commission the longest, what, 4 or 5 years ago, we took a tour of the 3 access points.
yes, at least that long ago,
Okay.
but yeah.
I guess I would ask my fellow commissioners, are you familiar with all 3 of the access points?
So there's the,
You've got Sergeant Road,
Yes.
there's Dale Road, and then there is a small one that is between Marguerite and Argonne.
Which is
If you
in
look at it,
Hutchinson, I think it would be.
it might
the
be
extension
Hutchinson's. If you look at it, it's where the lot
Might
lines
be an
aren't
alley.
together. There, and that one there, the one that I'm talking about right now, that's got the sewer station with the shrubs right in front of the sewer
Yeah.
station. Okay?
Right.
So that's, people aren't gonna walk there, okay? The one that gives
Right
me
here.
heartburn is Dale Road.
I think that's the one I have.
Okay, well, no, Dale Road is, what I'm gonna tell you is if you would've set foot on that, the resident would've came out and said, what the heck are you doing on my property?
It
If
looks
you
like
got that far,
driveway.
because the resident 2 doors up the street would have accosted you first.
That's very true.
No, it was the Dale Road one I went down.
Okay,
Not the sergeant?
Sergeant is the one that would have had the
I'm not
steep
sure you
bank,
could even
went
get in
real
it, Dave.
rivet. I mean, I don't even know if the stairs are still there.
Okay, maybe it was the Sergeant one.
Okay.
Yeah, the Dale one,
Right
I
there,
don't
I don't know if you
The
know where
big
Kelly
round
lives.
sewer thing, right? Yeah, it's right by
Yep.
Kelly's.
Yep, that's Sergeant Road.
Okay.
The Sergeant Road has a big round thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
they all
does.
do.
But it's got a grassy knoll and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, it was Sergeant then.
Remember,
But I guess my point I wanna make on the Dale Road one is if the city doesn't go in there and claim that, again, the resident is going to continue to think that that's his property and not allow public access. Because when we went as the planning commission, if you remember,
I do.
we got accosted and the guy was not really nice. And don't get me wrong, he's got it beautifully landscaped. He had chairs
Oh,
and
yeah.
tables and all kinds of stuff
The
there. I
same
mean, he
is
made
true.
it his own little paradise.
Same is true for the other one,
Yeah,
the alley one.
right.
Now, keep in mind, river access can also be view access. So like Sergeant Road is definitely a good view access point. You can go sit on the grass, look over the river,
Right.
and there's nothing dangerous about
Do we
that.
maintain that grass right there?
We do.
Okay, I was wondering that.
Right.
It's nice. So, okay, let's get back to this. What do we need to change on here?
Everything.
Yeah, basically, 1, 2, 3, 4, the first 4 are all referring to the land between Davis and Butler, which never happened. The next is about the Argonne Bridge access, and then the third is the pedestrian corridor, which if I am correct in reading that, that's actually the interurban trail now.
There's another railroad line that ran through Grandview Acres along the top, kind of the top of the bluff there. It used to go out to Marabou. The IEP built it, and there was a point we were thinking, wow, if the city could get that, because they decommissioned it, if the city could get the rights to that, we'd have a direct access to the Centennial Trail. So a lot of things that you're seeing that talk about connecting us to the Centennial Trail are talking about that railroad line.
Okay.
But I think, I don't know if the individual landowners got to buy their little chunk of it.
And is
because it
that
went
on
through
the
their
south
backyard.
side of Euclid?
North side, it's above the river. Just, if you follow,
Oh, on the north side of the river?
no, it's on our
Oh.
side of the river, but the north side of the Grandview Acres
Oh,
development.
so the east end over there, okay.
Yeah,
So it essentially follow the railway till it connects to the trail at the end of Empire?
I don't think.
Yeah,
You've got
it used
Yeah, I
Coyote,
can.
Coyote Rock now,
right, they
Yeah.
said a lot of
Yeah.
things have changed.
Yeah.
cut that off.
And then
That's
it
what
runs into the IEP land, because when I did the land capacity analysis, there wasn't anything over there that I can remember.
Right, and a lot has changed.
Yeah.
It was just a dream, a thought of,
Yeah.
wow, when you know, something we
Yeah, I
could build
think
on it, but it just
inland-
didn't happen.
Inland Empire paper, I think maybe there's still something back there, but they use that a lot for just junk.
They
I
do.
would, I would love to see a way for Millwood to be connected to Centennial Trail, because I'll tell you, we frequent it a lot and it's extremely dangerous to get to Centennial Trail with children or animals or bikes. It's very dangerous because there's no way to cross Argonne.
That's the problem.
It's very dangerous. I almost got sideswiped trying to go along the sidewalk on this side to cross the bridge from my house, and it's very dangerous. And I know a lot of community members would like to use the Centennial Trail by walking or by bike, and it's too dangerous. So if we could have that in our future plan under this section, maybe that'd be great.
Have you figured out that when you get down to where you're getting ready to go on the bridge, if you trigger the light at Liberty, it stops the cars on Argonne long enough for you to go down and get on the bridge?
Even if you go along the sidewalk over there, along the paper mill, it's too narrow.
I know.
It's
It
very
isn't narrow.
dangerous.
It isn't narrow.
You can barely push a stroller along that sidewalk, and you're right next to a semi truck coming 35, 45 miles per hour within 2 feet of you.
Yep.
It's too dangerous. Yeah. So that would be a great thing to have for our Millwood, is to be connected somehow.
It's part of that new project they're doing next summer.
We'll
But
see.
It's not going to be great, and they've fixed that, but they've created the same thing up here, where you've got this narrow sidewalk with a building there
Yeah,
that you've got to, with trucks whizzing past you.
Are they gonna put a barrier up?
They are down near the bridge, they are not here. I know.
It's no good.
I agree.
So what I'm hearing, let me make sure I got it down right, the thoughts are a statement such, so basically, if we were to remove this section and add new language, it'd be something that deals with river access can also be view access if usable land isn't appropriate. That's one statement we can have in there. Millwood needs connection to the Centennial Trail, and I just put for my own notes, Argonne Crossing is currently dangerous. And then something I was wondering, is the interurban trail completed, or are there additional extensions and connections that can be done off
I'm
of
not
it?
sure I understand what interurban trail is.
This one,
This trail right here that starts,
I think it ends at Vista,
Yes.
which is the city of Millwood, right?
They've
Yeah,
talked
right.
to-
But it is on the
Okay.
plan for the city of Spokane to go from Fancher, I think, into SCC. They've got it, I don't know, remember if it's funded, but it's in their process, that it's pretty definite. So then the hope was that you could somehow convince the city of Spokane Valley to connect us to the city of Spokane's. So it's in the planning. Now, going the other direction looks pretty doubtful.
Okay.
From us to SCC looks promising.
So something like coordinate with City of Spokane Valley to extend interurban trail to the west could be a statement.
Yeah.
Okay?
not trail.
yeah,
Right,
because
you've
from
got that
Vista
plan.
to Park is the county, and then from Park further west is the city. So you've got
That's
three
cities.
municipalities, you've got us, Spokane County, and the
Oh,
city of
it's not the
Spokane.
county, it's city of Spokane Valley.
It's Spokane
City
Valley,
of
And then who
Spokane
owns it
Valley.
to the east?
That's right.
Spokane Valley.
To the east?
Yeah,
Okay.
All the way to the
Unincorporated
subway, wherever that is down.
county on that side,
Sign
but
City of
we're
Spokane.
surrounded by.
Subway
Spokane Valley.
is where it goes under the railroad tracks. It's the end of ours.
Yeah.
Subway, because that was the name for going under railroad tracks.
So, and for the Centennial Trail one, it could be as simple as Millwood needs a safe pedestrian/bicycle connection to the Centennial Trail.
Yes.
That's good, that sounds good.
And I would like to see the results of our survey before we fine tune the river access thing. Because I'm curious
Yeah.
what that's going to say.
So, well, like she said, this is a work in progress and perfect. Thanks for those points, Amanda. Any other items to discuss as far as this one's concerned? Agenda item 4B.
Under housing, I noticed it says something about the currently cited mobile home park will continue to be allowed through appropriate zoning.
That's actually good. And I'll tell, oh, what
But it's not. We pulled that out.
do you mean? No, the
Not for the-
Brett,
not for the existing.
Brett Howard.
Yeah.
Right, but it's grandfathered in. It's
It
not
is.
zoned in anymore.
It is zoned
does-
in.
How is it zoned in?
It's listed as, existing. When we changed the manufactured home park standards, it says it was allowed in those two zones for existing parks only.
Okay, and we consider that to be zone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also want to point out, this is where the whole controversy started, the whole reason that we had manufactured homes or mobile home parks in our code is because of that existing one, and this paragraph says that. You know, there's been this, oh, you guys snuck it in on us. Well, no, it's been there since the beginning, and this shows it. Here's the vestiges of it right here.
And that actually is consistent by calling out, that was actually a good call out under housing. Because one of the provisions of the new standards too is to preserve existing low-income housing. And so that's actually good that that's in there.
Well, then the next page, the transportation systems. The only major arterial should not be widened because it would further divide the community and increase the difficulty.
Yeah, so much for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so much for
So,
comprehensive plan guiding
Yeah.
things.
so should that be left in?
Well, actually, when I read that, I look at it from a little bit different perspective. So I've seen the plans for Argonne Road, and the second part is increase the difficulty that pedestrians presently experience when crossing the road, and then it talks about the connections. So I look at it as the road isn't being widened. What you're adding is a multi-use trail that goes up on the east side of it.
But the road is being widened. They're putting an extra lane in. There'll be 5 lanes instead of 4.
There'll be a turn lane, correct?
Right.
That's
And there's
That's the fifth
traffic
one, right.
calming features that narrow the road down where you cross. Am I correct in that?
No.
Yeah,
No, not really, I don't think.
yeah.
There's those.
Up to the bridge.
Yeah.
The
they've
curb
got
bulb
the-
outs and
the
stuff.
curves out
Yeah.
in the center, going this way and on this
Mhm.
way to show for the traffic calming.
But
just
but
so-
it's not for crossing. None of that stuff helps you
It's
with
at the
crossing.
intersections for slowing down. It's the
Mhm.
visual appearance of to narrow the road.
Yeah.
It's the traffic calming measure.
That's why I figured that was still current, because the actual plan is meeting what that is saying.
Boy, I don't see that at all.
Well, that's kind of torturing the language.
I think so, yeah.
Anything else?
Shoreline protection. We have a Millwood Shoreline
Oh.
Master Program now. We can get rid of the county.
That's an easy one.
Cool. Anything else? Agenda item 4B?
That's all I had. Is that all the discussion? So basically, the modification to shoreline protection, I'll bring forward as a comment. What we discussed on the public and open space on there, and that was it.
Under historic preservation, just a typo, there's at the end of Millwood residence, you've got an extra apostrophe that doesn't really belong.
In the very first or second word,
Yes,
I think they're meaning residence, like instead of apostrophe S, it's S apostrophe.
but it says Millwood residence value, there's nothing there that it belongs to them.
Okay, so you're saying we don't need that apostrophe on
Right,
it?
right.
Okay,
It doesn't belong.
Yeah, I think
okay.
Millwood's here and it comes down here to the city of Spokane Valley and then the city, but on the
Anything
north
else?
side, it's all in the county, I believe.
Okay. Nobody moving along to agenda item number 5, the periodic update checklist
Yes.
presentation.
And in the interest of time, I will make this very efficient. So, it's a ton of information to take in. It was a ton of hours to put together. What these are, I don't know if you've ever seen them before. These are the checklists that the Department of Commerce puts together. It used to be comprehensive plan, development regulations, and critical areas. Now they've lumped, because the periodic update lumps, they've lumped the comp plan and the development regulations together, and then they separate out critical areas into a separate checklist, but also is referenced in here. And what I had to do was go through our existing comprehensive plan, our existing code and critical area regulations, and basically outline if we have anything dealing with the discussion point. If we do, does it need to be updated per state law? And then I provided a ton of notes to reference what we were looking at. And to make it easy to view, I highlighted in teal all the things that we're going to be, or they came out on here in blue, all the things that we're going to be looking at, which is a lot.
Correct.
So that is the expedited summary of that presentation. I'd be happy to present anything further if you so desire.
So we're gonna be going over all these sections one at a time.
Yeah, well, my goal is to go through and incorporate the language that meets state law and bring it back to you. And then we can adjust from there where there's room to adjust. So I'm gonna try and simplifay the process, sorry about the
This feels
letters.
weird not seeing
I
you
know.
all night. I can hear you, but I can't see.
I'm gonna try and simplify the process as much as possible.
Okay, so with that in mind, I think the big question I have is, what is the time frame for this? How do you have it
So
spelled out for us in our?
I brought the work plan with me tonight.
Okay.
Because I figured there would be questions. So starting at the October meeting, we are going to do the presentations that you had asked for, the blue zones, essentially the food, and then the Habitat for Humanity, because I figured those are good to kick off while we're still working on the visioning portion. We're gonna talk about potential modifications to the vision. So October 30th, I will have comments from you guys tonight. I'll have comments from city council. Hopefully I'll have comments from the public that have come in. And I'll make notes on some potential modifications to what we just went over for chapter 1, and then 2, 3, and 4 as well. That updates the visioning, the goals, the policies, the actions framework, the demographics, all that kind of stuff. And we'll start discussing that at the October meeting. Next, in November, and I'm only gonna talk about planning commission because council basically either piggybacks you or it's a joint meeting and then I'll call it out. In November, we'll have the introduction to the new Parks and Recreation element. That'll be proposed as a joint meeting right now because of when Thanksgiving falls and you're meeting normally. In December, we will review the community survey results as another joint meeting. And then starting in January, we will continue the modifications to chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the comp plan. That'll continue with February for just the Parks and Recreation element. And then hopping back in, March is those chapters again and the Parks and Rec. April, those chapters again and the Parks and Rec, culminating in public hearings for those chapters. And then it goes on into the next section. So starting in June, you're gonna start on the next sections of the comp plan. The land use, the housing, the transportation, EPS, capital facilities, and utilities. And then also, as I noted, possibly a climate resiliency element. We are working with Spokane County on that, so we're kind of at their mercy. Another new requirement in state law.
Right, so when you say we're working with them, do we get to do stuff that's specific to us, or we're just stuck with general language they come up with?
So I'm not exactly sure how the process is gonna work yet, but I believe Spokane County will be working through either PTAC or with the cities to craft an element that works for the small cities and towns. And then we can make recommendation, adopt from there. beyond that, I'm not exactly sure how the process is gonna work, but there was no reason for Millwood to do a separate one when we're sitting right next to, Spokane Valley or Liberty Lake, or, it's all the same climate. Here.
Same climate, but
Yeah.
we're doing more specific, different specific things.
But it's
to-
only
to
the
mediate.
resiliency portion, we don't have to do greenhouse gases or anything, we're too small.
But things like our tree canopy.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that we have put a lot of time and effort into that is not the same for the county or the, so.
My guess is those kinds of recommendations will come out for everybody though. So we may already be there, which is fantastic. But my guess is those things will be included at a countywide level.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, good.
And then, we'll continue forth with the comp plan, until we hit, the next public hearing. And then in September, have a public hearing on the entire draft. So we'll have 3 public hearings for all of this. And then once we, can get the comprehensive plan updated and adopted, we'll move into, right now I had us going into critical areas in October of 2025. I've heard, and I gotta double check, we may be allowed to postpone that and put the development regulations ahead of it. If we do, I will make a switch. So either way, we'll be moving into regulation, hopefully in the fall, 1 year from now. So, and then proceeding forth.
Can I ask just a couple of questions on this periodic update? Page 5, what is HAPT?
Oh, HAPT. So Housing for All Planning Tool. So that is what I'm currently working with Spokane County through PTAC, Planning Technical Advisory Committee on. That's when I keep talking about the table or the spreadsheet. That's what I'm talking about is the HAPT tool. That's what says how many units we have to have into each income bracket.
Okay, Housing for all
Planning tool.
planning tools.
Would you like some water?
And then I had another one. Page 12, it says identify local policies and regulations that result in racially disparate
Yes.
impacts.
This is.
What do we have in Millwood now that would require changes to regulations that result in racial impacts?
Well, I put yes because we have to review it. It's another one of the new legislative requirements.
Okay.
And we will see what we need to adjust. I have some mechanisms I'm gonna use to make sure that we're addressing it, and we'll adjust as needed.
So basically, we need to state that we're thinking about it and aware of it?
No,
can't think
we
of
need to
any
meet.
specific policies.
Yeah,
that
so if we have policies in the comp plan or the development regulations that without even intending to create racially disparate impacts, we have to address them. Whether we exactly do or not, I'm not positive yet, but I had to highlight it because I need to hear from the public, all aspects for their viewpoints too, if that makes sense. Yeah.
So I had some questions.
Okay.
On page 17, just a very specific one. About multiple transit stops are no longer available?
So page 17,
Yeah.
let's see. Oh, yeah, the very first one. When you look at the map that's in there right now, the map 8 and 9, it shows transit stops further up Argonne that are not on the current Spokane Transit routes.
Those aren't Millwood though,
Yeah,
right?
they are. There's 1 or 2 that were north of the Grace connection, and right now Grace, I believe, is the furthest north one on Argonne. So further up.
On Argonne.
On Argonne, yeah. And then there was possibly a few others scattered that are not on the transit route. So we have to make sure.
We do still have multiple stops in Millwood. We
Oh,
just
yes,
don't have
there's
the same
multiple that don't
multiple
exist anymore
Oh,
for
okay.
Spokane Transit.
Okay,
Yes.
you had me worried there. We lost some.
Oh, no. I mean, you did lose some, yes. That map showed ones that don't exist anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
So, to put your mind at ease, I also sit on the Regional Transportation Committee, who meets today before this meeting, and we are addressing that specifically in Millwood and East Central.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Because you have spots in here that you're supposed to have better transit than what you do.
Well, we used to have.
Yeah.
Well, and I think a lot of it, I mean, as we're doing visioning and looking at, 25, 30 years down the road, we are anticipating now what's happening because of the completion of the North Spokane corridor.
Yeah.
And what that's going to do for Argonne, which
And-
should be traffic lightening
Yes.
in a big way.
One example of, with the spots not on the north end of Argonne anymore, the multifamily right along the river there, right at the intersection at the Argonne Bridge, that's not within a half mile
Yes, it is.
of Grace.
No, but we have a stop on Liberty.
So if you go this way,
Yeah.
it is within a half mile?
Yeah, easy.
Okay, if that one is still available. So when I looked at the
It's
transit
the
route,
main one. It's my main one. I
it
hope
is
it's
still
there.
available? Okay,
Must
so
be.
those are the things that we have to look at, because I looked at the ones on
Everybody take a
Argonne.
deep breath.
Yeah, it may not stop there most of the time because there's nobody standing there. But anytime somebody's standing there,
Okay. So those are the things I'm looking at too, to make for consistency.
Anything else?
Another question on page 49 about impact fees.
Yes.
Jurisdictions collecting impact fees must adopt and maintain a system for the deferred collection of impact fees. But it says on all these points, the city of Millwood does not currently collect impact fees.
That is correct. The city of Millwood, but you have provisions in your code for it.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask. So if we decide to implement something, if we get to
It'll be
that point.
updated.
Okay.
so on page 28, new parks and recreation element will be included in the comprehensive plan. So we're gonna do a whole element on parks, not just the park. So we're not just doing a park plan.
No,
We're
you
doing
already,
an element
yeah.
on parks and
yeah,
recreation.
we'll be incorporating the Millwood Reimagined Master Plan work that you guys did in
It's
2022.
not finished. We
No,
need to
and
finish
we'll,
it.
we'll make sure it gets, yeah.
We'll finish
So
it.
we'll incorporate what we have, like in the survey, for example, I picked out the elements that were included in that park plan, and that's what people had to rank in the survey.
Yeah,
So we're using the work that's already been done, but we're actually creating an element that'll incorporate it and give us a plan structure to meet Washington State Recreation and Conservation Office requirements, so we can apply for grants. So we could make the improvements to the park, and maybe extend, help fund the extension of the interurban trail, for example, those kinds of things.
okay, and then on page 35, the development regulations. Oh, that's where the parking is. It says spaces must be at least 8 by 20, so 8 by 20 is a minimum.
Yes.
Then there's some stuff in here on the tribes and getting their input and things. I noticed somewhere, and I can't remember where it is, somewhere in our documentation, it refers to the Coeur d'Alenes, that we for sure asked the Coeur d'Alene tribes, but it doesn't specifically call out the
Spokane
Spokane tribe, which is crazy because this was Spokane territory.
So I can
So-
tell you how I apply it, for projects and, amendments and such. I reach out to the Spokane tribe and the Coeur d'Alene tribe. We currently, right now, are working at the PTAC, SCEO, and Board of County Commissioners level of updating our countywide planning policies and then doing interlocal agreements, for tribal coordination. And so we'll just need to make sure this is consistent with that.
So, yeah, we should probably get the Spokanes written in specifically, because this was a major wintering village for the Spokanes. And where the paper mill is, where they're going to redo the Argonne project, was part of Winter Village for the Spokanes.
Just ask my grandpa.
Yes, exactly. He'd back me up on that, I'm sure.
I'm sure he would. Yes.
Any other questions?
Is that it? Perfect.
Okay.
All right, moving on to item number 6. Any public remarks? Seeing none. That takes us to item number 7, the city planner report.
Yes.
As if you have more for us.
Did you want the critical areas checkbook?
I just lumped it together in the summary, so if they had any questions.
Okay.
Yeah. For August, obviously you know what planning commission worked on, so we can skip over that. For permit license land use application review and processing, Starbucks special sign permit, you guys approved that in September, so we've actually gone beyond what it says here. That's now been issued. North 40 certificate of occupancy, we started discussing it, we're continuing forward, and that should be wrapped up here soon. I've had various business reviews that I went through. Wingstop, we actually had to adjust the addressing on that, and Wingstop is going to be the corner unit where the old video store used to be. And it actually, they're going to extend in, so they've done I don't think it's listed down here, it was in the previous report. They did a shell TI that extended into the cleaners, I think is what was north of that. That is now a corridor with bathrooms and stuff. And so that'll serve Wingstop and then I believe the unit next to it, sorry. And so that's a big TI that's going on in there.
In a big restaurant.
Yeah, and then, let's see, you already know about that. Did a ton with the periodic update, and we've been keeping the website, social media, everything updated. If you haven't had a chance to go to the website, to the periodic update page yet, there's a certain planning commissioner that's featured in there. So check that out. And then we also posted this.
Is that you, Mike?
So, at Millwood Days, we did the exercise of Imagine Millwood, and we had children of all ages, basically 3 to 63 or whatever, that went through and did drawings and suggestions of what makes Millwood great, what could make Millwood better, and then how they imagine Millwood 20 years from now or something they'd like to see. And we had some really cool ones, like this one was a fishing pond. And so they wanted to see a fishing pond added or interpreted in kid terms, availability to access for fishing. But he specifically said a fishing pond.
Sounds like a cool kid.
Yeah. And then we had some other ones that had, like this one. This is lighting that looked like flowers and stuff along the interurban trail. And so there were just some really cool ideas. A balloon, hot air balloons, either a festival or coming through Millwood. We have them in the South Valley all the time. But having hot air balloons, somebody wants to incorporate more rainbows and everything, so playground equipment with rainbows. It's really, this is kind of the kid version of visioning and allows you to take this for what it is and incorporate it where you can. It's usually in things like parks, which happens to be pretty much everything we have here is either parks or greenways is what they called out. So that is up on the website now.
Cute.
And then, let's see, finally, I've just been continuing forward with educational webinars on this update, constantly coming through with new info and coordinating with PTAC and then attending the online steering committee meetings, which Mayor Freeman is still on the steering committee. He's no longer chair, though. So, are there any questions on the report?
I have a question. I touched base with you on Wingstop. Because that Wingstop, and first of all, there's gonna be, 5 restaurants right there in that whole little corner, which is kind of amazes me. But that whole remodel is like $1.5 million. It was in the spokesman review that, and maybe we don't have to be involved, you have to be involved in approving that. But I think we should be updated a little bit more about what the plans are so that we know what's going on there. And the reason I asked that is somebody asked me about Wingstop and I don't know anything about it, so.
Yeah, other than a Wingstop restaurant, once I saw TI, I ran it through for utilities and signage. We did the signage on it. That's about as far as I need to go because then we turn it over since we contract with City of Spokane Valley for building permit review. And it's in their hands now to ensure that all the building codes are being met and occupancy levels and all that.
Yeah, I guess mine was just more of a general overview, Amanda, of what's gonna go on in that million, because they're gonna update the whole facade, the outside, they're gonna update, do a lot of, I mean, $1.5 million is a lot for that little corner of the Argonne Center, so that's all, that's
Okay.
just a request.
I am glad to see that something's finally going in there into where Hollywood Video used to be.
Right.
Yeah, it's been,
This is my best job ever.
oh, wow.
Really?
I can see how that'd be a good job.
But it's nice to see those empty spaces being filled
Yeah, I
in.
agree.
So that, for such a huge restaurant, there's enough parking?
Commissioner Moulter actually asked, so obviously I wasn't involved in the project, but I can tell you I've worked on other ones. And when the development is initially proposed, whether it be through a subdivision or a binding site plan, you look at the entire complex, so what would have been the Albertsons complex at the time, and the developer would have to go through and list out all the different proposed uses, and you do a parking analysis based on that, with the mix of uses. That's how practicality it occurs. How it specifically occurred for Millwood, I can't speak to that, but in practicality, that's how it does occur.
Realistic,
And then,
it's gonna be tight down there.
so they're basically, everything's okay because it was set up back
Yeah.
in the 90s or
Yeah.
whatever? And
So I reviewed for, Chipotle, I think, Christina reviewed Chipotle. I reviewed for Starbucks. So when Starbucks tore down the gas station and they have a piece of that complex, I went through and reviewed to make sure they have enough parking for that restaurant because it wasn't part of the
Right.
main complex. But anything within the main complex would have been reviewed under the original plan. You don't generally review for specific tenant improvements when it's in a multi-use.
Okay, that's
Facility like
interesting.
that. Yeah.
So, a video store and a restaurant apparently has similar parking requirements.
Well, you know, Papa Murphy's is come and go. I mean, they pull up and they get their pizza
Yeah.
and they go. But the military office, or right next to it, their cars are parked out there in front of that.
Just like advertisement cars.
Yeah.
All day long. So I'm surprised that some of the, with all these restaurants going in, that they're not gonna be an issue because there's gonna be, everybody's gonna wanna be at the restaurants and not at the far end, the Albertsons parking lot on the far end that have all kinds of.
Well, and that's the thing you gotta consider too, is even though the restaurant is at the east end, you may have available parking in the complex at the west end. They may have to walk.
Yeah.
But it's going to depend on the time of day. So when the offices are open, like the recruiter's office, may not be the peak restaurant time. The peak restaurant time may be after 6 p.m. So that's why you look at a complex as a whole and consider the timing of the uses and the different mix of the uses.
Good point.
Interesting.
Anything else on the planner report for questions? Okay, that brings us to commissioner comments. I've got just a couple that have already been answered. Thank you for finding out if we needed to have running water in order to be able to reside on a property. We did talk earlier about something I'd like somebody, I don't know, to keep an eye on. I know that Commissioner Wu, Commissioner Beasy brought this up, but there is a campfire ready to be lit at the nuisance house. And I mean, it is stacked up, it's just waiting for a match. And it's right underneath the tree, it's dry. I'm thinking that that potentially could be a bad thing. So just
Is it
something
a
there.
pile of wood? Or
It's,
is it fire?
it's stacked up, ready to be lit.
It's like
a campfire.
teepee with a ring around it, just all,
Good call, Mike, because I'm sure that once the burning restriction
The only thing I can do is the fire department. The fire
That's gonna be more than a
have the
warming
fire
fire.
department
Okay,
wander by.
and then the only thing, I have a question, and since we just beat up the parking for Wingstop and everything, the Starbucks driveway, how many parking spots did that remove? And is that something that should have been brought before the planning commission to review?
It's
I would-
actually really big. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very long.
So,
It's very long, to me, it looks like it's definitely changed the parking in that parking lot in
Yes.
that
Oh, yeah.
area.
So I would have to look back on the specific number it removed.
Okay.
I don't know if it so much removed them as may possibly relocate them because they redesigned the site. And the short answer to would it come before planning commission, it's no.
Okay.
Because it's the type of project that is reviewed, at the planning, building and public works level.
Okay. That's all I have.
Kind of.
Oh, no, I do have one more, okay? So noticing, looking at the calendar, November's meeting is scheduled Thanksgiving Eve, and December's meeting is scheduled Christmas Day.
And that's why I moved them on the work plan to
Okay.
be, joint meetings with the council.
Okay.
Or to a
Okay,
different.
so do you have
meeting.
those dates?
Yes. Okay, so November 20th is what we're proposing to be the city planning commission special meeting in lieu of the 27th.
Okay,
And December 10th is proposed to be the joint city council planning commission meeting in lieu of the 25th.
okay, perfect, cool. Commissioner Ricker, any comment?
I just wanted to kind of tack on to what you were saying about the parking around the Starbucks. I kind of assume that all that layout there is compliant with the zoning regulations, in which case there seems to be a problem with the zoning regulations. The parking's not very good now before they're even open. And not very good, I think, is an understatement. So perhaps that needs to be looked at.
Well, it sounds like it was put in according to zoning regulations in 1990 something, 30 years ago.
The Starbucks I looked at
Right, but
Yeah.
the rest of it,
was when the complex was approved.
which was
Most of them were in the mid-90s, I believe.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't remember, it was,
Which would have been, I don't know if Millwood had their own or if it was Spokane County standards at that time.
well, we'd have our own code, yeah. Yeah, so it's, apparently, we've established that what our current rules are irrelevant because it had enough parking at the time.
Well, and it would have been considered, so a restaurant use would have been, should have been, I can't say would have, because I wasn't the one that reviewed it, but should have been considered in a multi-use building like that, multi-tenant building.
Anything else, Bobby? For commissioner comment?
I think we need to advertise these a little bit more strongly, get the word out there in all kinds of ways.
So we did direct email. Millwood Neighborhood Advocates gets it. Millwood Now, the community group gets it. Millwood Impact gets it. Several people that signed up on the list at Millwood Days get it. Plus, I sent it to Planning Commission and Council, all the notices. It's on the website, it's blasted to social media, it's posted at the different locations. Is there one more thing?
Did it come in the water bill?
No, it didn't.
No, the water bill will be the, community survey advertisement.
Good,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yes.
And how long will the survey be up for?
I'm anticipating mid-October at least, if we need to make it longer. I did not set a definite date for taking it down. By the end of October, I would assume it's down.
I'm thinking the Neighborhood Advocates newsletter comes out mid-October, so it'd be nice if it was a little beyond that.
Well, and they direct email their folks, so they're my point of contact.
Some of their folks.
Okay, they're one of my point of contacts, and then they spread word from there as well.
Right, but if they have a chance to get their newsletter out to the general neighborhood public, which
Yeah.
they've been doing pretty consistently for the last several months.
Well, and if you know the date of that, I'll make sure we extend it to at least a week past that.
Perfect.
Somebody just needs to let me know.
I'll find out. I know who to ask, so I will find out.
Commissioner Molitor,
That's all my questions and comments, thanks.
Commissioner Wu?
Same.
Same, okay, perfect. One last comment from me is great work on this packet. That's huge. So good work on that for everybody involved, and kudos for the work there. So,
Can I have-
nobody else has got anything else?
I have one thing.
Oh,
And one quick thing. So,
You're not on the
I
commission.
know I'm not. Just, I have one
So the
quick
chair's
announcement.
not gonna recognize
Have a
you.
staff
One,
report.
Okay,
it's
the
just
chair
a one quick
recognizes Lisa.
announcement. So the packet does look different this month, and I apologize for the double up, but
That's fine.
we are in the process of getting updating the website. So we had some software that did the packets for us. It was not very user-friendly. We had a very difficult time with it. We use Civic Plus. They do all of our codification for the for the municipal code. So we already use them for that. Their specialty is jurisdictions. That's what they do. They have a meeting and software agenda packet, and they also design websites for municipalities. So we decided to go that route because there is a discount to do. It's actually going to be cheaper to do that. However, there's a little bit of growing pains, meaning we have to learn new software, new everything. But we have someone who is helping us keep things together in the interim while that's happening. So if you go on the website, you will notice that the agendas and the packets are posting. They're there. All the past ones, however, are not there right now. They will be when it all gets all done. But for now, we have like the 2 or 3 latest ones in there for Planning Commission and Council. And a note is on there. If you need additional or want past ones, please just notify us. We will send them to you. But they're not just readily available at this time. We're trying to make it look as close as it does now, but there will be a little bit of difference. So bear with us, but we're trying to make it be seamless. So that's what's going on with that.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you. Okay. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I would like to make that motion.
Who will second it?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.